Okay, I hereby call the regular meeting, monthly meeting of the Cambria Community Services District Board's Standing Finance Committee to order. We have a quorum, all 5 committee members are present. And I have actually a chair report, a couple items I wanted to cover of interest to the members of the committee. The first is that we've altered the bylaws. We've changed the bylaws for the committees in 2 ways that are important for us. One is that we no longer, the chair position I take will no longer be a voting member. You know, up till now, I've been a tiebreaker if there's a obviously there are less than 5 members here. If there are 4 members, I would vote in the case of a tie. That has never actually happened. And one of the complexities that status created is that we had typically a 6-member committee, because I could vote in one, certain limited cases. And then that led to the creation of 3-member, now and then 3-member ad hoc committees, because you had 6 members. Under the Brown Act, that wasn't quite a quorum. But of course, in reality, it was a quorum because we almost never, in fact, we've never had a tie. We've always had votes of the 5 members, essentially. And so just to get rid of the problems with that system, the board, CCSD board, decided to make 2 changes. One was to make the chairman now a non-voting member, period. So I'm not part of a quorum. I still run, I still do what I do, chairing meetings and obviously the agenda and stuff like that. But I don't vote in case of ties. And the other one is that now all ad hoc committees are limited to 2 members. There are 2-member committees, no, one nor 3. And so it sure simplifies things. And I guess it's in, with that, in sort of in harmony with the Brown Act, essentially. There's no problem there. The other topic, which I think you're already aware of, but I want to make sure you're, planning on it. We have not officially adopted the calendar, I don't believe yet, right, for 2025, but I think everyone is on board on this committee with the schedule that we have come up with. 2 big things are going to happen. One is that we're going to go to one board meeting a month, and it'll be on the second Thursday, right? Second Thursday of the month, combining the 10 members into one meeting. It'll start in the morning and it'll, after a lunch break, it can go in the afternoon. And the other one is the committee meetings for the 4 current committees are going to be the following week after that, which is going to be it's not always the 3rd week, but it's going to be the week that follows the board meeting, which is always going to be the 2nd week. So for instance, we're going to be and we're on the Monday of that week. The idea was to have it on 2 days, 2 meetings in one day, 2 meetings in another day, to make it less of a burden on staff and everyone else setting up, taking down meetings, and also to put it in a good spot right after the board meeting, so that when we take up stuff and we make recommendations, it gets the Haley, for instance, and the staff have plenty of time to incorporate that in the staff reports for the board meeting that will be the next board meeting. So it was for timing and for efficiency and for better use of our staff resources that we're making these changes. And also, I sent out, subsequent to asking all of you if Monday mornings at 10 was fine, that Monday, everybody said fine. I sent out an email about, there's 2 dates, which are federal holidays. There's President's Day and then Columbus Day. And we had to arrange a meeting off of those. And I think everybody agreed here to Tuesday, the day after, I believe. So your calendar should be pretty set on that now. And we're going to make the change. I think R&I is on the same day, and I think they're okay. So I think we can count on that now. And thank you all for coming, thank you all for getting back to me with your availabilities. I'm glad we could do it. So those are my two share reports. Sure.
Do we have to reapply come January?
Oh yeah, thank you for raising that. This is a 2-year mark, and we through the process is, I think some of you have done this before, is that you basically open the committee up to applicants. Current members of the committee can serve another term. Most do, but the idea is you do open it up so that other people can put their applications in. So you do have to, all of you have to apply again, submit an application. It doesn't have to be very, you don't have to give us a big resume because we know, you're a known quantity. But you also have to bear in mind that might be people who want to, want to join, and I have to be fair, we have to be fair to treat everybody equally for the committee. So it's never been a problem up till now, but you'd be ready for that, that eventuality if it does occur. And I think the submission of the application I think the process starts in December, I believe, and then the applications are due on, I think, in early in January, and we sign it and we create the new committees in January, as I remember. So December, it'll be December that it happens. Yeah, thank you for reminding me of that. We have, I just want to know, we have some members of the public present. Michael Thomas is present online. Another director, Harry Farmer, is here. And then we have three members of our fire staff, fire department staff, Chief Berkey, and Michael Castellanos. No, that's Castellanos, yes. And Taylor Graves, yeah, thank you. Kayla Graves, right. And then Dick Clark, who's here, going to be here actually to present some information about the skate park maintenance. And one more thing on that topic, if nobody has an objection, I want to switch the positions of the regular business items so that we take up the skate park maintenance first. So Mr. Clark can give us his presentation. If nobody has a problem with that, we'll do that. What? Matthew's online too, so he's ready. Oh, he's available too. We have actually, okay, Haley, yeah, and Matthew McElhaney, our general manager, is online. So, moving forward, I want to see if we have ad hoc subcommittee reports, and I believe Ms. Fritz has been working with the administrative cost allocation subcommittee or ad hoc committee. Maybe either the committee members or Ms. Fritz can sort of give a report on that. Ms. Fritz, too? Or do you want to, Dave or Vicky?
I'll default to her.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay, yeah.
so. we
Okay,
did,
Dave.
A few times, and we are, we started by gathering information, and we, defined, what problem we were trying to solve and kind of getting a handle on what we wanted to do. We did some research into other districts and different policies that we found. There was a district that had hired an outside consultant that did a pretty extensive review of not only the overhead allocation, but quite a few other things. But in the end result of that war overhead allocation was that basically what they had been doing was sufficient and there were no changes made. So I don't know if we want to go down that route. Another district we looked at, really used effort, kind of quantifying. It didn't look like it was so much of a time audit, but, and it was hard from the documents that we received from them to say like the methodology in which they did it. But I think we're going down that path now of trying to identify effort, basically.
Yeah.
So, which can be a little bit of a confusing exercise as far as, there's different times of year where your effort, you can't really do a time audit for a month and really fully capture because different things happen at different times of the year. And so we're trying to come up with an effective but simple way to identify effort. I've started a spreadsheet and I'm trying to identify, so for like accounts payable, like what are the main tasks? Processing invoices, entering invoices, paying checks, creating POs, for the different admin tasks, and then trying to assign an effort for each department that we service. it's still a little subjective. What does effort mean? So I think we'll have to have further conversations, and I'm happy to have some of those conversations with the bigger group so I can give direction to staff
Mhm.
on what does effort mean? And then I think we're still going to look into trying to identify certain costs that can clearly be charged to a specific department.
Yeah.
There are, such as some of the attorney fees we have, not the retainer payments that we pay Carmel and Natasha, but some of the other ones that are like really specifically about a certain subject, we can charge those. And so we're gonna try and, analyze our costs and pull out anything that can really be charged to the specific departments and not just put in the overall overhead. And so I think that's where we're going, is not really having the cost so much separated out by those things, and it's not really defined. It's just in all, we're gonna define effort and sort of allocate things in this way.
That sounds like, so it sounds like something that, I have two questions about that. One is it something that can be sort of stable year after year over year, a formula, or are we gonna have to keep revising it with my experience? Would seem to me to make budgeting a little more difficult if that's not stable.
I don't think it can be a yearly thing. I think maybe, especially depending on how we define effort and ask staff to allocate their time. We cannot do a time audit every year, and I just don't think that's beneficial. Like, I don't think things change enough from year to year. So we haven't talked about that. I'm thinking maybe review the actual allocation numbers maybe every 5 years or something like that. I don't know if anyone on the committee has any thoughts.
I mean, I want to go to the committee members, see what if they have anything.
Yeah, I definitely think that we do it once and then we do it 3 to 5 years down the road, unless there's something extraordinary. Extraordinary, but extraordinary things usually can get allocated. So that's probably not gonna impact in the day-to-day operations, which you really try to allocate down.
Yeah, it's, from my opinion, when we first started looking at it, it looked like there would be a simple way to take and do that process. I was educated. There's not. It's, there's a lot of gray in there, and it's a moving target continually, and I think trying to make it more, what we're trying to find is something that we can defend, because no matter what you come up with, somebody is gonna be able to poke at it and find something that's not exactly right this time. That will happen, and we already know that will happen. But I think by and large, if we come up with something that we can defend over the larger scope, we'll be fine. And
that's
I agree with that.
documented. Yeah, and it'll be documented in the policy, and that's really what matters, right? And so, yes, I think,
I just noticed, General Manager McNamee has his hand raised.
Yeah, thank you, Chairperson. Great. I know I've been working with Denise on this, and we're gonna keep looking at it. Some of the things that we have to do is, and I've tried to explain it, there's just one pie, and we have to figure out how we're gonna divvy up these slices. And right now, when you take a look at the overhead allocation, there's a certain amount going to each department. And so, when we look at salaries and things like that, how are we going to allocate the GM salary? How are we allocating the other salaries, and then the different services that are being provided, whether it's legal and things like that. So I just want to chime in and say, I'm going to continue to work with Denise on that. We're going to take a look at it, but I do agree that it can't be done every year. It's something that we need to look at in terms and see how that shakes out.
My other question regarding timetable is, it sounds like, we're coming up against the budget preparation process for 2025-26. You think realistically this can be completed? This changeover can be completed by
it
then?
depends on how deep we want to go and how complicated we want to get. So I don't think a good overhead allocation policy needs to be complicated. There are so many factors, and if you get too deep into the
Yeah.
weeds, it can be really overwhelming, and I don't know if it's going to be time effective to sit and like I said, I could do my time, like I'm spending, an hour today on fire, I'm spending, but it's going to change.
Mhm.
And so I don't know if that's effective. So it's really about how we decide to do this. And I've gone through this process with other organizations and everything, and it's really about having a defensible written documented reasoning on why we're splitting things that way. And so I kind of tend to lean towards the easy, not, and I don't want to say easier, but if you get into the weeds of actually doing the time audit on everybody, it becomes, it's
Yeah.
just not.
I can see
it's
that.
Not
I can see that,
productive. And so hopefully we can do something, and I can give direction to staff just to think about it. I am getting a little, trying to write down what our methodology is and what does effort actually mean.
Mhm.
And well, it's not cut and dry.
Mhm.
So, I think that we're hoping to where I can give clear and easy directions to my staff that are not exactly like a time audit,
Mhm.
but they can give me, what they do and an easy way to divvy up their time. But then, that effort is going to fall to other expenses that have nothing to do with labor and
Yeah.
benefits, right? So
Right.
it's just an overall philosophy, and that's what we're struggling with now, is nothing was really written down about what effort meant
Right,
or why they segregated certain expenditures into different
It's
categories.
it goes back, I mean, the origin of it is a
Yeah.
long time ago.
So really,
Yeah.
that's what I'm
Right.
focused on, and I think that it can be reviewed every year with the policy and tweaked if we need it to be.
But it doesn't need to be, thoroughly, you don't need to go through and
This-
collect a lot of data again.
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
Correct.
Yeah.
And then also the discussion, and I think when we finally bring forward a policy, it's gonna address the revenue that admin collects too. We haven't really dived deep into that discussion, but I think that discussion will be included in the final product of what we bring
Okay.
forward.
You're good.
Timing, I mean, again, yes, hopefully by next month, we can have something.
Okay, yeah, because everybody should know, you probably know this already if you've been following your calendars, we have 2 more meetings this year. One's fourth Tuesday in October, I think it's the 26th. And then there's one in December, actually covers both month, November, December, on December 5th. So we have 2 more meetings. Hopefully, I guess you think about that. I mean, think about this, the subcommittee, this schedule, because if you can get something to us, say back to the committee by next month, that would be really good. And we might be able to get something to the board
Mhm.
by the end of the year.
Mhm.
And also, now I want any more in public comment on on this report. I going to find out if there's anything new from the long-term planning
No.
subcommittee. I don't believe so. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I think Michael had it.
Michael, yeah.
Got a question. Is there, Michael Garcia,
Yeah.
Captain, is there plans for doing like a cost analysis of what each department costs, and we can adjust how much we put into allocate overhead, so we can see our department costs, admin this much money, so we can, certain years we can reduce that, so we can potentially get more equipment and go forward, because like if another department is using more money, we can adjust that accordingly.
That's an interesting question. Is it, money or effort? How do they how they relate? Because it's,
Yeah, there were very few of the other districts that we looked at that did anything other than effort.
Yes.
Okay, there was one, I think, that did do it just strictly by revenue. But since that's kind of, dependent upon how much revenue we put into the fire department as opposed to F&R.
Yeah.
Then that can be swayed. So that's why we came up with this effort thing.
Mhm.
And we think that will give us the best overall fair assessment, and I think the idea is to make that as simple as possible. She was searching for another
Yeah.
word, that easy, we don't want it necessarily to be easy,
Yeah.
but simple is what we're looking for. So
And-
that we don't have to go
It's
through.
yeah.
Muscle suicide, page after page after page that they were asking their people to fill out, said, how much time do you spend, doing, Michael's payroll?
Right.
Right? And it was very detailed. We said, no, we don't need to go down that road. So I think she's coming up with something simple, and I think that will probably work.
And I have run a methodology, I did this last year, that was based on, I was trying to find it and I couldn't find it, but expenditures or revenue, that was real simple, because that is a common way that organizations do it. And it was cost prohibitive to some of our, like Matt said, we're just, pieces of a pie, and so
Yeah.
it wasn't really gonna work for our organization. So and there's certain areas, let's take accounts payable, for example. It's really, I could come up with a methodology for accounts payable based upon how many invoices are paid or how much money actually travels through there, because that can kind of equate to effort, right? Because it's all about payments, contracts, sort of thing. So what's harder to assess is other jobs, like the confidential administrative assistant or the GM or myself even, that's harder to equate like effort to something. So I will definitely, I'm working on it
Mhm.
and I'm trying to get something that
Yeah.
is simple.
Yeah.
Not easy, but just simple and is not wasting time,
It sounds like good progress has been made. I think you're homing in on something that's
And-
feasible, so.
To
Did that
answer
answer your
Captain Castellanos'
Yeah.
question, I feel like what you're talking about is maybe a different conversation than overhead allocation.
Okay, yeah.
And maybe more, because you're talking about like yearly decision-making about expenditures being included in the overhead amount.
Just the overhead amount, just like
In
looking at
general,
other,
yeah. So
Or-
that's something I'd have to talk about with the general manager and get back to you. At this point, we don't have
Yeah,
conversations going about that in
Okay.
particular.
Good, thank you. Thank you for your question. There's no further discussion of the ad hoc subcommittee reports. I'll go to committee member communications. Anyone have some brief report on their activities that are related to this committee and our work, or brief question? Comment? I think I hear none. I'll go ahead to public comment, and this is on topics that are not on today's agenda, but are on, within the purview of the finance committee. We have, we have one person online who's a member of the board of directors. I don't think usually they comment, so I don't think he wants to comment. He's just observing. And, I think Mr. Clark is probably gonna be, you don't want to talk about anything not on the agenda. I don't think so, yes. Fire staff. Any public comments you wish to make? Again, I'm not on this agenda, but within finance or finance purview. Okay, well, we'll move on. Consent agenda is the consideration to approve the July 23rd, 2024 regular meeting minutes. Any amplifications, corrections, et cetera, Ms. Kristen?
On page 3 in the bottom paragraph, second to last line, I think the word manner should be matter with 2 T's.
Second. On this matter? Yes. T-E-R.
Yeah, because we don't comment on people's manners.
Right. Actually, I also think this is a matter of my effort. It says Chair Gray said his efforts to find a clear ruling on this matter have not yet been met. Efforts usually have not, my efforts at that point have not succeeded, I guess. So it's just a matter of wording more than anything else.
Well, regardless, it's not manner.
Yeah, it's not manner. It's definitely not manner. I would say have not yet succeeded, just to make it a little more like, give you a matter.
minor singular.
those two changes. In other words, manner becomes matter and been met becomes succeeded. Anyone see anything else that needs to be changed? Not, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Okay, a second? Just move a second that the consent agenda be adopted with two changes in the minutes. One is at the bottom of page 3, both at the bottom of page 3, the same line, where the word manner changed to matter, PER, and then the words been met changed to succeeded. Can I have a roll call? Mr. Pearson,
Aye.
Mr. Hendrickson.
Aye.
Mr. McCann.
Aye.
Miss,
Karen.
yeah, no, Miss Chrisman. Miss Chrisman.
Hi.
I have some lapses there.
Aye.
Carol. Ms. McDowell, yes, okay. Motion passed unanimous.
Love cup.
Listen, as I said, we were gonna be taking up 4B first, which is, kind of a combination. Have, turn this over to Ms. Fritz to do the staff presentation, but what essentially we're doing, there's kind of two parts to this, this effort. As, you may remember, and I think, it goes back a couple of years now, when the, CCSD board agreed to, an MOU, memorandum of understanding with the community council on funding for the skate park. There were two elements of it. One was we were going to spend $178,000 in total for the design and construction of the facility. And then at the point when the facility was constructed and operating, there was going to be an agreement that the cost of maintenance had to be covered from some source other than CCSD funds. And we're working on that part now. The MOU is right now is rather general and it does not have any numbers, anything specific about how it's done, how much is needed. And it's kind of a two-part process. First part is what we have today essentially in front of us in the agenda is figuring out how much it costs to maintain long-term to maintain the skate park, what the expenses are, what happens to the properties and needs to be dealt with. There's a restroom involved, and our staff has done a lot of hard work on finding out what other districts and other public entities do in the way of skate park maintenance, which is sort of summed up in the spreadsheet. And also we included, as a staff included a summary of what Templeton has spent in terms of paying outsiders, paying contractors or vendors to maintain a skate park. The question, of course, is you have those costs. You also have staff time costs, which are a little harder, obviously, to put a number on. But we also have some information about staff time costs in the spreadsheet. Staff time, actually, in hours. So what I wanted to do, then the second phase, the second step is if we can get to some kind of sense of what we would need in terms of money annually going forward. The next step, and this is Mr. Clark is going to be talking about this, is how to fund it. What would be needed to fund it in the way of a long-term fund, basically a maintenance endowment, which is amplified. There also are going to be commitments from private sources for some of the funding, but how we put that together without dipping into general fund resource and general funding fund resources. So first of all, I think we want to talk about the and I'll turn this over to Ms. Fritz again for the staff report. Talk about the cost estimate and what kind of work we've done and what we might be able to, sort of estimate today as to cost going forward long term. I got the 25 years out, and what do we think we can get some number, some broad number maybe as to what we would need to have to maintain the skate park. So I'll turn it over to Ms. Fritz first, and Mr. McElhaney's here too. So whoever wants to do it.
So
Yeah.
agenda 4B is
Yeah.
the discussion and consideration of Cambria skate park maintenance costs. There's a lot of history in the staff report, just to refresh everybody's mind about where, how we got to where we are. with our partnership with the Cambria Community Council, and the grant that we are getting to help pay for the actual construction. And so I think, President Gray gave a lot of great background on what we're trying to accomplish today. So, drawing your attention, to, I think, a very complete and wonderful spreadsheet that confidential admin assistant Dodson put together. I know at first glance, it looks like, oh, there's no information, but we are reaching out to other, which done a great job of even finding communities that have skate parks. And what we're finding is a lot of them do not track their maintenance expenditures as a separate item from just their normal maintenance operations. So, where we did get responses, you'll see as much detail as we got from them. So this is a really diligent effort. It's a very comprehensive list of skate parks that are in California and ones that we can compare to. As President Gray mentioned, we also have included in here a detailed listing from Templeton Skate Park. I have a relationship with them, and they use our same software, so it looks familiar to you all. And as you can see, you know, it's about $1,500 a year that they're estimating. Most of their maintenance is going towards the restroom. And I did take out, they have a lot of expenditures towards, they hold camps and stuff like that, but that is not what we're talking about. So that isn't here. She did tell me that they're looking at doing their first like more major renovation to the skate park, like resurfacing and stuff, but they've had it for 30 years, 20 years or 30 years. So and so she doesn't know how much, she couldn't give me numbers on what they're estimating for that. But again, that's going to be quite a ways down the road, hopefully. So we have that. So the way I'm looking at this for our purposes is this draft document that is outlining what we feel like are the weekly or daily activities that might need to be done. So this is on page 38, is our best guess of what, we feel like we need to do. So if you look at the first box, the Cambria Skate Park Maintenance and Repairs, they're, again, using Templeton as the example, because that's what I got the most detail from, they're not spending a whole lot on replacing broken bulbs or grind rails for damage and all of that stuff. It doesn't seem to be, and I happen to live right by the skate park. It is a very busy skate park, so I know it's being used quite a bit, but they are not detailing out a whole lot of expenditures for that. So the cleaning, and again, Templeton doesn't track their staff time for that either. They just said their maintenance tech go out there and do what they need to do. So, we can try and assess. So I think this is a really complete list on page 38 of what the expectations may be, and we can try and assign costs to it. And we probably would want to be a little more conservative than what Templeton has given us. As far as $1,500 a year, like we might want to raise that a little bit, but again, we're just gonna have to assess. We're not getting a whole lot of feedback from other skate parks. And it leads me to believe that their costs are nominal and they just incorporate it, so, I don't know, Matthew, if you have anything to add.
Mr. McElhenney?
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Fritz. Yeah, so like explained, it's difficult because all the data is disaggregated, and so it's not attributed straight to the skate park. And of course, for us as a district, this is a first for us. So we don't know what we don't know in terms of what this is going to cost. Our skate park, in comparison to some of the skate parks on this list, is a lot smaller. Our comp is Templeton. And so that's kind of what we're looking at as the model. I've spoken with utilities manager Green, and there's some thoughts about sealing the concrete every 5 years. That could be a cost. There's going to be iron fencing. And so there's going to be painting associated with that every 5 years. I spoke to David and, David doesn't, at least from what he stated, doesn't appear it's going to be a ton of staff time to clean and maintain the restroom. But there are ancillary things that tug on our staff that can't be quantified. With the dog park, our F&R staff get tugged on a bit to make sure the water's replaced. Or if, I imagine if there's dirt or leaves at the skate park, there'll be some staff time associated with that. But we really just don't have a good idea of what this is going to cost. We're just doing our best to estimate. We did look at, we have 47,500, and I know Mr. Clark handed a handout. At our last ad hoc meeting, we discussed the 47,500 grant that we got from the tourism board and talked about perhaps using that as a maintenance fund. Unfortunately, looking at the agreement that we signed with them, it's pretty specific about the use for construction. So you will see in your handout an adjusted spreadsheet that includes the 47,500 in the community council's CDs and their rate of returns for 10 years, 15 years, and 25 years. And then it goes back to sort of the original fund that was around $2,000 a year. Our hopes were a little high after our last ad hoc, as this being a possibility to move that 47,500 into a maintenance fund. But because the way the contract's written, it doesn't look like that's going to be likely. We would actually have to reach out to CBID to see if they would be willing to amend that agreement to allow us to use it for maintenance, which could be a long shot. But I wanted to get that out ahead of time before Mr. Clark spoke to that. And that's kind of where we are. And Mr. Clark's going to speak to the two different funds that the community council has set up in CDs and their modest rate of returns, their conservative rate of returns at 4%, which could be more than that. And I know the Lions Club dedicated 5 years of $1,000 a year. So yeah, that's kind of where we are with our estimates of skate park maintenance.
Okay.
Happy to answer any
Thank you.
questions.
Yeah, thank you. I'll turn this over to the committee for questions, Mr. Pearson.
So how often do you clean the bathrooms that we have in the two parking lots?
They do
Daily?
daily.
Yeah, so I think weekly here is not a good idea. I think that needs to be changed to daily. And I think the real issue here is, are you going to estimate the staff time that it takes to upkeep this? And if you do, are you going to track that at all to try to make sure that you're somewhat covering that? Because it is gonna take time. Back when, I remember Carlos saying that it took an extraordinary amount of time to upkeep the old skate park. That was mostly because it was deteriorating and falling down. But he said also it was trashed regularly. And that they had to go over there and on an almost daily basis, and certainly on Monday after the weekends, go over there and do a real good cleanup of the place because it had been trashed. So I don't want the amount to be too small because I don't think that's fair. I think we have to make a reasonable assumption on what it's gonna cost and put that in and then decide where that money's coming from. But I think you have to establish what is the number that you're gonna be happy with before you decide where you're gonna get the money from.
I have a
Yeah,
question.
Ms. McDowell, Cheryl.
Is there gonna be a time on it? I mean, open at certain hour, close at certain hour? Who's gonna do the closing? Are the bathrooms gonna be on site there? I mean, what is the plan for closing bathrooms and opening bathrooms? Weekends?
So we imagine it'll mirror the community park, the ranch in terms of dusk to dawn. We are looking at, David and I are looking at improvements for the locking mechanisms and getting automatic locks. So they're timed and can be controlled remotely. That
Oh.
should help with staff time and closing restrooms. So we spend a lot of staff time, even on weekends, having maintenance staff come in on call just to open and close restrooms, which is really inefficient. So it may take an investment of, I'm just ballparking here, $15,000 to outfit all of our restrooms with remote locking mechanisms that can be controlled from a computer or perhaps some type of a cellular device. So that's one of the answers. The skate park itself will be fenced and have a lock on it as well. So it'll be secure, short of someone hopping the fence and doing some activities outside the norm. To Mr. Pearson's question, it's difficult to associate cost with staff time. Like we talk about effort versus actual physical costs. They are on a salary, so to speak. And so it's the effort that they'll have to put in. And we're trying to get David and Denise and myself are trying to figure out what is the amount of time spent on the skate park, or an estimate of that time spent, which of course affects other services in the district with our maintenance staff. So I'm not sure how to calculate cost when it comes to staff time versus cost for maintenance, if that makes sense. So that's something that we do have to work out, but I agree. We have to look at all the factors involved.
Any other questions? Oh, yes.
Yeah, it's not a maintenance question, it's more of an ongoing question. Do we have the liability insurance
I asked.
set up for the skate park? And is there any controls to make sure? I'm not a skate park person, so I don't know what the book of rules says as far as making people sign a waiver to be able to use it, or what do we do with,
Yeah.
how do we not create a big financial hole that?
That question comes up a lot.
So it needs to be a question. I mean,
Yeah.
typically, yes, we have insurance on all of our properties. I think Matt might, I'm not aware of the discussions around insuring the skate park. And that would definitely, if the district is paying to insure it, that would go into the annual cost. We could talk to our insurance company and see, get an estimate on what that would cost. Templeton does not have insurance in here at all, so I'm not aware of how much.
So it's under the general liability coverage then.
Yeah, and as far as if they have to sign a waiver, I could reach out to Templeton and see how they do it. They have a little more ownership, like they run their whole youth sports program through the CSD.
Oh.
So yes, I'm certain that people have to sign waivers if they're doing a sports camp. As far as the daily use, I'm not sure how much they track
Yeah,
people coming in and out. So that would be a question we'd have to ask them.
I would assume, I would assume that the CCSD had insurance, well, they had a skate park for some 20 years, and I would hope they had that was covered then. I don't know, this is until like 2019 or 2020. Do you know anything about that?
I don't. Haley and I will work with SDRMA to see if we can reach out to them and talk about the process for that insurance. And then I'll work with legal counsel. Again, I'm just to my memory, I know there's a lot of different signs that have been on skate parks where there's like once you pass the what's that?
I said skate at your own risk.
To that extent, right? There's something that is posted, and I'll work with legal counsel on what we would need to post that would absolve the district of liability or indemnify us as far as those types of things. But there's always liability, in any facility. But I'll get some more information on that piece of it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
McCann.
And I think, this cuts to some of the discussion we're having about alleviating maintenance costs by putting automatic timers. There's probably upfront costs that could be classified as maintenance and maybe amortized out over a yearly basis, like insurance deltas, and, locking maintenance. So it depends how you define maintenance or?
Yeah.
Is it maintenance or is it annual expense?
Annual expense, really.
Okay.
Because, because over time, and I think it was already noted, Ms. Fitz noted, after a certain number of years, there's repairs. Or things that have to be done to the fences or the concrete. So it's maintenance, repair, and operations, of course, is the restrooms, for instance, that would be called operations. And closing, yeah, opening and closing, all the things that are normal. And then insurance, you mentioned the insurance delta, that's kind of, if you really want to get really precise about it, it's what we are paying in extra insurance premiums because we have a state park. I don't know how you can ascertain that.
I think that's a simple question. Yeah,
Yeah.
the insurance
Yeah,
company.
they should be able to tell you that.
Here's the base, what are you gonna charge us
Yeah,
extra
right.
once we open? it?
Exactly.
So yeah, we need to know that too.
Pretty straightforward.
Well, and a lot of that cost they won't know it until at least, I mean, at best until we have the designs, the construction designs.
Yeah.
But typically it doesn't get insured until once it's built and they take a look at the property. They look at the restroom, they look at the footprint in the skate park, they look what's a part of the skate park. Because when you're insuring it, you're insuring everything within the skate park to include the restroom. So I don't think the insurance company would know the exact cost until they really see what's going to be included in the skate park. So we'll get closer to that upon completion of the design.
I think they would be able to give you an estimate, and I think that's what we're looking for
a worst
right now.
case,
Some ideas to it.
or even a worst case.
Right.
And we'll reach out to SDRMA to see if we can get that.
Yeah, because SDRMA covers some of the people who have, some of the agencies that have skate parks, obviously, I would think. They had some experience with this. I had a question about staff time, and quantifying it. Under the slow skate park, which I think is county, that first, section on the, spreadsheet, where we're talking about Los Osos and Apoma. There is a estimate of staff time for Los Osos 480 hours per year and Apoma 576 hours per year. Is there any way, well, it sounds like our staff time may be slightly less because it's a smaller skate park, but is that fairly good rough ballpark estimate of what we would be spending in staff time?
I don't think so, because we're looking at a 20,000 foot square foot skate park and 18,000. I mean, someone who's has good visuals could tell me what they think our footprint of the skate park is. I don't have the design in front of me.
6,000 max, including the parking lot.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I don't know how much maintenance is, defined by the area or by the facilities, like there's a restroom. Our facilities are, and then there's restroom is need to open and close, there's the need to clean it and so forth. I don't know. I mean, that's my question is there some way you can extrapolate from that to our size?
No.
And come down and get maybe a smaller amount of hours, but something we can kind of, pin our calculations on a little bit.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how I would what methodology I would use for that, but
Yeah.
I'm open to suggestions.
Well, I think that if Mr. Aguirre can look at this frequency of cleaning and stuff, and just go through there and assign some hours to each of those things, I think in the end, you'll get an estimate of how many hours he's gonna spend on a weekly, monthly, and yearly basis. And that's I think that's what you start. And that gives you a basic idea. He then, over a year's time will go, I either overestimated or I underestimated, and you can adjust. But I think for the first year, you're gonna have to go on somebody's best guess. And maybe we call Carlos and ask him what he thinks it would be. He's still in town.
He's in Morro Bay.
Morro Bay, yeah.
Yeah, we could get all of him and ask
Yeah,
him, or I think David could probably give a pretty good estimate.
I would think you could give it, yeah, because we already do this. We do
Okay,
restrooms.
Dick says he
I
can
can
do this. So Dick.
You can do it.
No, we already do restrooms ourselves anyway, so we have kind of a,
Right.
and we're gonna be maintaining the restroom at East Ranch too. Same, like,
Right.
talk to Templeton and do a bigger inquiry
Yeah.
into staff time. I mean, they offer, we can talk to their maintenance techs and all of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This one would probably require a little, like, apply it's a different population that's using the Ace Ranch,
Mhm.
so take it up like 50%.
Yeah. This is also more, it's also, I assume that during the hours the skate park's open, this restroom will be open to anyone. Yes. It's gonna be a public restroom, so that it'll probably get because where it is between the east and west village and a lot of pedestrian traffic and a lot of people there, it probably would get a fair amount of use on weekends especially. From visitors, so we have to kind of account for that too.
Yeah, it is a smaller restroom. It's just one stall, so that's something to
Yeah.
consider as well.
Yeah, yeah. As far as the cleaning and everything, yes, it's less work, obviously.
Just one, unisex
Unisex, right?
Well, yeah, but I mean, one at a time though.
and ADA. Stop it.
Hopefully, it's 2024.
Yeah, okay,
All right, moving on.
moving on. So anyway, I guess I just sum up so far where we are. We're looking at, we've got several factors that would need to be analyzed and quantified, I think. First, the one that I think was mentioned first was the, you have an annual, you're talking about an annual number, but long-term, you have events and major, significant work done, in the future that you have to kind of amortize back into the whole stream. And that's one thing. The restroom maintenance, obviously is something that needs to be identified and quantified, well, in terms of supplies and also hours. The staff time is probably the major thing. The automation or the opening and closing, security in general. The security in general, how that's going to be handled, how much of that is done by staff. And it sounds like we're moving toward an automated system for opening and closing, locking and unlocking, which has an upfront cost. So how do we account for the upfront cost of that? And also the long-term maintenance of it, because the system can have troubles over time.
Technology has trouble.
No.
New technology.
New
Well,
technology.
We're also looking at that for all the restrooms. So this would just be one
Yeah,
of the multiple
part of it.
restrooms.
Yeah.
So we're looking at that for things we've already committed to. So there'll be a
That might
small.
be. Yeah, it's good. And then insurance, and particularly the added cost of insuring the skate park. And I think quantifying hours in general, like find a clear way to quantify the cost, put a dollar amount on the hours that would be likely spent. And first of all, going to David Aguirre, if you talk to him and get a detailed accounting for how many hours it would take. And for these various tasks that are outlined in our in the draft, in the second spreadsheet, basically, all the things that would need to be done at certain frequencies. So that's what I have so far. Did I miss anything?
I have a
Yeah,
question.
sure.
The insurance that is on the district policy right now regarding the doggy park. Do you have a rider on that? I mean, because I would think that it'd be something maybe similar. Can you check into if there's a separate policy for the doggy park in that area?
Yeah, like I said, I'm gonna work with Mrs. Dodson as we contact SDRMA to get some of those estimates.
Okay.
So,
One final question.
yes,
I was asking Dick if there's going to be lighting there.
I would think for security, might be some lighting at night, but not like, it wouldn't be used after
That's-
dark.
Right, we're closing it at dark.
You're
Right.
closing after dark. That's a question, that's a good question, though. Do you want to have some lighting so that people don't come in and vandalize, things like that?
I have to-
Matt, or-
I'll have to get with Spawn Ranch as they, because they're gonna be working on the design of it. And we haven't got that far to talk about the lighting aspect. Our thought was dusk to dawn. I'm sure the restroom itself will have a light on it, That's
Right.
probably
Yeah,
part of the restroom itself, but as far as the skate park, I don't have that answer.
Yeah, my question is about, I know the dawn dusk operation means there's not gonna be any, a lot of lighting, like, but security lighting. So
Mhm.
that it's not, just a inviting target for, and especially for vandalism.
It's gotta be something on the parking lot too, I would.
Yeah,
think.
yeah, in the parking lot too, so there's some lighting.
Follow-up question, is the restroom inside the gated area?
Yes.
It is, okay.
It'll be
Yeah.
secured.
So that's good, but of course it'd be open daytime, 7 days a week, so people will use it, but. It's not gonna be open, it's not gonna be out there 24/7, isolated, outside the wall, outside the fence, as it were.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think maybe at this point, hopefully. I mean,
Yeah,
if staff's input on this, is this helpful? For you to, come back with maybe, helps you come back with some numbers. That are,
Yeah, I think it's a good start. I mean, I don't know if I'm too bold by maybe, would it be appropriate for a small ad hoc? It would have to be a quick and swift moving ad hoc to work with staff on some of this research, because, we're bringing this before the board not too long.
Is there a reason why we're moving so quickly?
Well, because funding is occurring potentially with the grant in January. And so we're not too far away from actually funding the entire project. And in order to move the project forward to RFP, these are some of the answers that we need to answer as part of the MOU with Skate Cambria to actually have the park built. And so I know they're anxious. I know that the grant, has a timeline in terms of construction. I don't think we'll run into issues in terms of that timeline, but we're moving forward as if we're heading into construction somewhere in the beginning, first quarter of 2025, weather depending. But this is an answer we have to have for the board to approve us moving forward with the RFP.
Yeah, it sounds to me like we can do this if we can wind this up by December. Or even early January, the first meeting, the meeting in January. It probably would be enough time, it wouldn't be too late, because it sounds like, I mean, the terms of the MOU are that construction, there has to be an arrangement for agreed upon, adopted by the board, obviously, for maintenance of the facility, before construction can actually begin. So if construction is going to begin, say, in the first quarter, if we can get something, adopted at the beginning of the first quarter, I think we're okay, aren't we?
Yeah, in theory, I think we would be okay. I mean, we'll definitely get some pressure and heat from our Skate Cambria.
Well, yeah.
They're definitely excited about the project, and I don't blame them.
We
But we got to get everything in a row. So I agree.
We actually just need a number, because we need a dollar number. Actually, we need a dollar number, and there are two elements, as we work out the dollar number, the actual mechanism, which Mr. Clarkson talked about a little bit, the actual mechanism for funding it. It'll be, we can pretty much know what we're going to be doing in terms of the type of mechanism. The dollar amounts that go into this fund will depend on the yearly and the annual expense, but the nature of the fund, the structure of it, we can kind of figure out before that. And that's so we plug in the numbers to an agreed upon structure. I think we could do that in the next 3 months, 3 months, essentially 2.5 months. So a quick an ad hoc committee here. You want to have a couple of people from finance,
it's a suggestion. I mean, I don't, ultimately we believe that we've got to get it vetted through finance and have it,
right?
Have the support of finance to move it forward. So I'm not opposed to having a small ad hoc to work with this on tightening this up, because we want it to be agreed upon, at least at the finance level, with finance support to move it forward.
All of our ad hocs are small now. They're all 2 members, as you know.
Yeah.
So, well, any volunteers? I think it's a good idea, actually. Over the next month, essentially. Just have a Zoom meeting.
Under the table.
A Zoom meeting with Matt and Denise, essentially. I mean. Scott?
I am not fast moving right now.
You're not.
I am not.
I don't know, the two committees that or two subcommittees I'm already on, I'm not sure what the status is of the long range planning one.
Long range planning is a little bit in suspension right now. They're not really doing anything right now.
Right.
This would be, this would actually be, it would be, you can have one meeting, maybe two.
Well, how about we do this? How about we go back to the drawing board, try to get some more information, and we'll bring it back before finance next month.
Okay,
That's fine.
that's fine, yeah, because, I mean, there's not a lot of,
But I know Mr. Clark has some things that I'm sure he wants to present on, so.
yeah, so we'll move on to that. So I think hopefully we made some progress here because, telling you what we see is needed in terms of the calculations for the number, the big number. Also inflation, we can't forget that. You know, so having inflation factor. You guys, I always in my planning, whenever I think of finance, I think, you know, normally historically 3% a year is inflation. You just have to factor that in and factor it into the structure, the annual annuity too. So I want to move on to Mr. Clark's presentation and what you have, just to describe the alternatives that you've been working on for setting up a long-term stream of funds to cover likely maintenance costs. Maybe I'll turn it over to you.
So between the community council and the district, we have about $900,000 available for matching funds. We can do a $900,000 project right now. We have the 450,000. And we may have we may be overfunded. We don't know until the numbers come back. So if we pull the 47.5 out from the grant, we should be good. If we can't pull the 47.5 out, I can bring out an equal amount, but I have to dedicate it to the skate park. We have to go with our core values. We said we're going to dedicate the money to the skate park. We're going to dedicate it. I've set up a plan that I would have done in the past, I would do in the future, saying that what I'm presenting today is I would do personally. What I've done is I want to do two funds. I want to do one dedicated to the skate park, that will restrict. And I would like to do a unrestricted one that will take us into the East Branch. We got a lot of components that we're building, so I've got $62,000 already lined up that it's private money. We can do whatever we want with it. If we needed to move it to the restroom a little bit, we can, or we can move it to the East Branch. So my basis is I put $31,000 in each fund. I got 31,000 dedicated to a CD that's at the drones, and another 31,000 CD for the unrestricted fund. I don't know how much money I'm coming out yet, because we don't know what it is. I agree with Denise's numbers. We've done some research on the beginning. Our estimates that we're getting from the professionals, which would be Swan Ranch and Tony Hawk Foundation, is $1,000 to $2,000 a year for the initial. And that could take you up 3 years, maybe 6 through 10. So that's why I did the restricted one. We put 31,000 in there. That's basically bringing in present value of $2,000 a year for 15 years. I can stretch it to 25 years at 4%. I use 4% because it's slow. As Tom says, as we get more closer, we'll put in the inflation and I'll pump up to 4%. 4% is way low, but I wanted to make sure that I'm not trying to sell you some goods right now. It's low. So it's basically the two funds, how we get to the money. So right now we have a MOU from the Lions Club for the first 5 years. That's $1,000. If you look at your page 5 here, the original one that I did here, but it just shows you the 31,000 put in at 4%. We're running out for 25 years. I can do looks like $2,000 about 26 years. That would take care of the basic stuff of the rails, the graffiti, the basic park generation. I put the other 2,000 over into the East Ranch fund to cover these items that the staff would do. I give you $2,000 or saying I need two for the skate park, I'd be the two to start with the cleaning up if you come in. I guess toward the restroom. So I could provide 1,000 from the MOU from Alliance, 2,000 from the restricted fund, 2,000 from the unrestricted fund. That's bare bones. That's the bare bones approach. If you flip over and go to page number 6. Page 6 is 5, talked it over, but we're gonna make a couple deposits. In 2025, when the skate park, the disc golf is done, I'll personally bring in $10,000 to pump up the balance. And then 2026, when the skate park is done, I'll bring in 15,000, which will give you, you can still pay out the $2,000 for 25 years and still have 67,000 left in the fund. We flip over to chart number 7 on the basics. Every 5th year, I pulled out $5,000 for either, there's gonna be some painting on the fence. It's gonna probably amortize about $1,000 a year. So for every 5 years, I can bring out additional 5,000 and you still have $29,000 left over. So there's a lot of things that we can do. So if we pump up the fund to $78,500, with back to number 1. If we wanted to set up a 10-year plan, we can generate $10,000 a year for 10 years. Chart number 2, I believe we did for 15 years at $7,300 a year to cover whatever. That, again, 2,000 go to the basics, 5,300 to the district for whatever. The third page is a 20-year plan. We would pump out $6,000 a year for expenses. And the last one, I can take it out 25 years. I can take it out 25 years at $5,200.
Yeah.
I have a lot of flexibility because we're all working with unknowns.
Yeah.
I have some larger donors. If I have extra money left over, I can go to the larger donors and say, can we repurpose it? Can we put it up front in an MOU, bring some dollars in earlier, or let's just take it over to the East Ranch. The group that was involved in the skate park, we've done the disc golf. We have $27,500 to do the disc golf now. That will cost 10 to 20,000 to put in, depending which one we put in. And we're also working on the playground, so we haven't left anywhere. So we want to build up the East Ranch. One of the goals is we could use this fund for this building here, because it says right on the plaque in 1949 that this building was to be used for recreation, which gives us the opportunity to use it. My big concern, I'm speaking here as the grandparent on the skate Cambria. As the president of the community council, we can give you money for recreation. And since I've been president like 6 years, we've given the healthcare district $88,500 toward 3 ambulances and radios. We've given the school district over 200,000. So by setting up these CDs, we'll probably hold, my thought is to hold them at Edward Jones, let them become like it's sort of a community foundation. They just send you a check once a year for whatever amount you want. The unrestricted funds, you can just tap anytime. But we just want to make it simple, but we just need the number. But the goal is, for me, is to come into the East Ranch and build it. So I think the community's been waiting 77 years since 1947 to do something in recreation. And we've been waiting over 25 years on the East and West Ranch. I'm just saying, let's make it happen. And those are my thoughts. I review this with each of the board members. And the growth committee.
What, can I ask?
Sure.
Yeah, well, yeah, go ahead. Cheryl.
What, in the event, let's say you give X amount of dollars and they're not all used, do they roll over or
No,
how is that adjusted?
You guys didn't do that internal. you'd go back to, what Denise was talking about. If we send you $2,000 for the, skate park and you don't use it, just put it in the fund. If we send you a check for $8,000, 2 goes to the skate park, 6 goes to the maintenance.
So it's allocated.
I would
Totally.
allocate the district. We don't want to get involved until the district how to run it. We say, let's do it on a planned basis. We can send you a check once a month or once a year, July 1st. And then you can allocate it.
Can I be related to this?
Is there any conversations about setting up a long-term maintenance fund, such as in 20 years, we may need to redo?
Well, I
Or would
think
there
so.
be a new like fundraising campaign?
Yes, what's happening is, Matt, as we develop the East Ranch for each element, we're gonna have to bring in extra funds for maintenance.
Mhm.
Tom and I were on the vets ad hoc committee. We'd like to do something. We'd like to have an FFRP for the maintenance part. We just haven't identified any 501c3s, but by isolating this money, we could start there.
Mhm.
So it's really the beginning of a internal 501c3. We've dedicated the money. So it's easier for me to fundraise if I say we're not commingling the money with you guys. It's much easier.
Yeah.
So that's my thought, was to fully fund the skate park and then go into the East Ranch.
Very generous.
Because the pros committee is very, ready to go. They're enthused, let's say, and I don't want to slow them down.
Any other, Karen, you have a question?
No, I don't, no.
Yeah,
Yeah, question. You know, I appreciate all the detail and the planning that you
Right.
put into taking and doing all that. But because I haven't been involved in all of this financing, I'm gonna have a bunch of questions
Sure.
later at
Go
some
ahead.
time.
Right.
Go ahead.
We can talk about that, but the initial 4 pages start off with starting from sort of 78.5.
Right.
And then it becomes 31,000.
No, the 31 was the original plan. That was what I had to develop personally. And 78 has now come from our ad hoc committee that we had last week of bringing down the 47.5 grant that we got from the tourism board.
Okay.
So that's the 31.
That's added to the 31.
Right, the 31,
Oh, I see.
I'm sorry.
That didn't have that. piece.
Right.
Okay.
And if we don't bring that chunk down from the tourism board, we make, if it's left over, I can bring it down as maintenance for the skate park. I don't know how willing Skate Cambria will be saying we're gonna do the toilets. So that's where the 31,000 come in. So if we can use those monies for the district to clean the toilets and whatever. So, and to build the components, I need to know what all the elements are. And this is a good sheet, but I agree with the couple of numbers. I think we're close. It's just a matter,
Mhm.
when we started the process, the bathroom wasn't there. It was only a $661,000 project. Once the county got done, it was up to $1 million. So we're all sitting in the same boat. We don't know what the numbers are,
Okay, I get it now.
but we're flexible.
Mhm.
It's wonderful.
Anybody, any other questions? I had a couple of questions. One is, talking about the community council.
Right.
And looking at the community council 25 years from now, what kind of guarantee, would CCSD have that that the community council maintains this
We're not gonna do it.
policy?
My thought was it's
Yeah.
set up as a community fund.
Mhm.
That as soon as we're done, it's your money over there. We can set up the terms. Edward Jones can do anything you want to do. So if we set it up, the money's on your balance sheet, and we set them a check for 20 years at $9,000 with a resolution from the board, you can come in and tap it. Set the other one, the community council, technically will be out of it other than we'll fundraise and put money in it. That's my intent.
I guess the secondary question is, actually, this is maybe more to, Ms. Britz. And I'm kind of concerned about any, keeping it clear that we're dealing with the skate park, and not trying to talk about it while you're talking, also talking about a fund for the park and so
Right.
forth, because the MOU is specific to the skate park.
Right.
We have to be careful that we're just talking about the skate park. Is it possible to have a restricted fund of our own? Set this up, they're basically, have it outside the general fund and everything, but have a restricted fund that we manage?
Yeah, that's,
I mean, because we have management now that I think is, up to the job of taking care of this. And just get a lump sum up front and manage it for that. I mean, we could do that too, right?
Yeah, I mean, I can set it up in the software escape for management fund
Mhm.
and run all expenditures through there. I mean, allocating staff costs would be different, but I could journal that.
Yeah, and we would have,
Here, you know,
Yeah, so we can have a fund that is just funded upfront. Get it, and it's, to me, it's simpler. We can manage it for perpetuity. Obviously we have enough money enough money up front. I would think that we could do that. And it would be it'd be simpler actually than,
we just want to hold the
having-
money. We just said we'd hold the money. We'd
Yeah.
like to hold the money till the end of construction.
right.
And we're just parking it at Edward Jones.
Right.
What you do with it after that.
Right, and this is all about.
I have to show that you can do the money. I don't want you to ask them $300,000 because you can't manage the money. I say, I'll manage the money for you. I'll set up. And that's our concern is.
Mhm.
This skate Cambria just, one of the students that was, on the original deal, he's graduating from college in the next couple of weeks.
Mhm.
They're going to go to Hawaii to celebrate.
Because I want to get a sense of the committee on what it's like, for instance, which of these annuity plans is most appealing or the best from the CCSD's perspective. Obviously, one of them, the 7 is not 7, 6 is kind of the truly perpetual. Obviously, you have to have inflation figured into it, but I know, where do we want to head with this as far as from the CCSD's point of view, which of these,
Well,
if we go this way?
So you know the costs,
Yeah.
right, and you know the money,
Right.
you really can't pick
You
one.
can't.
Yeah.
There.
And, obviously the best one would be the one that, gives us the most money
Right.
from most of the time, right? We won't know that till our next meeting.
Yeah. Well, the one thing I would suggest is we can, and I mean, Dick might do this or we can do this. Put an inflation factor.
Right.
In the withdrawal plan, which would of course affect the interest rate to
Right.
some
And the
degree too.
interest rate will go up.
It'll go up.
We should be,
It has to.
a fund like this, we should be able to get 5 to 7%. Yeah, 7 would probably be tops. I've run those numbers, but I didn't want to come to this meeting with,
Yeah. Grandiose.
gonna where this is bare bones. This is
Yeah.
way under budget.
Yeah, and getting back to our operation here, we have a restricted fund and this is managed by by us.
Right.
I think our investment policy, I'm not sure it has to have a little bit of carve out for something like this. Our investment policy is based on liquidity. And it's a 5-year limit on any maturity at this point. We would want to fund out years on this one with longer term investments presumably. So I don't know if we have to make a little adjustment or something, add something to our policy for a special restricted account. But I think it's possible. I mean, I think it's logical to do that. It doesn't seem to be a problem. I think we might just address that in our policy.
But by using Edward Jones, by using ETFs, and they give you a discount, so you're down about 1% a year on the cost.
Mhm.
And they can give you the professional help from
Yeah.
the organization from Edward Jones.
Just negotiate with our dynamic, or what is it, investment partners. Any more questions? I could sort of sum up, Mr. McElhenney?
No, I think it's a good discussion.
Yeah.
I do hear, your position, Chairman Gray, on having the funds in our hands, and then I hear the caution that Dick is stating because the community council has been given funds and assured that it goes towards the skate park. So I'm sure there's somewhere in between that we can work that out, and then the investment policy for the long range returns.
Okay, yeah. I think that pretty much sums it up. I think that the questions we have, obviously, as Mr. Pearson was saying, we need to solve that first part of our discussion, get some kind of number, annual number. out to the out years, to the
Yeah.
far out years, in
That
hand.
makes sense.
And then we can look back, go back to the annuities with an inflation factor,
So what,
and then decide on how much money we really need up front. Yeah.
so what's the plan on the 47,000? Are we going to ask the tourism board if we can switch
Yeah.
that, or are we going to? I mean, why not?
Yeah.
I mean, they can say no, but they might say yes, and then probably.
Yep.
What's
I'm
the
reaching-
latest on that? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna reach out to him. So this kind of just developed over the last week after we had our ad hoc meeting, and then that topic was brought up. And then I got in touch with council and we looked at the contract or the agreement, and it stipulates, in rather rigid terms what it has to be used for. So I'll reach out to the community council, or not, excuse me, I'll reach out to the tourism board and see
Yeah.
if they're able to that.
Because as I understand it, this is covering the costs which will be covered, should be covered by the grant, right? I mean, the capital costs, all the capital
Right.
costs should be covered by the
They
grant
normally,
and raised funds so
most
far.
grants don't
Raised
cover
funds, yeah.
maintenance though. This is the
Oh,
problem.
yeah,
That's the problem. And I think
right. The grant doesn't, yeah, obviously.
most grants don't.
No,
But this is the community council. I can buy you a lawnmower or a tractor, but I can't pay, I
Right,
can't
exactly.
pay the mechanic.
grants are not, grants are all about stuff, things.
But if we don't get
Building.
that 47 down, I can bring another amount down.
Yeah,
We don't know where we are in the fundraising until we get the construction docs and the engineering costs. So
right.
we're all sitting in the same boat.
Okay. So I think that the next steps for staff is to obviously find out about the 47,000, what can be done with it. And again, we get a better handle on costs, we can, which is the first step, I guess, to get a better handle on costs at this point. We can come back to this topic and with inflation factors included, go back to the annuities and see what would be the best way to fund it with an upfront contribution, upfront investment, yeah. Does that sound like a good summary?
Yes.
Good, thank you. Well, thank you, Mr. Clark. And also, wait, before we go on, is there any public comment? Because this is an item on the agenda, any public comment, and I think we have, our attendees we have two attendees on the board who I think, the way we usually do things, they can take notes. But I hope this was informative. Instructive, so we'll move on. Wait a little bit, take a short break. We have the next item is it's a leftover, the return of an item we dealt with last meeting. And just to summarize, as you know, we continued this item. And Scott, maybe, I don't know if you want to, if your questions have been answered, because I think you're mainly concerned about the cash, the future cash flow implications of a particular, a current contract or an upfront contract. And I don't know if that's been addressed, but that's something that
I would say, just given the state of where we are with the ad hoc on long-term planning, that we could just include general language as to how cash flows are accounted for in project, future cash flows are accounted for in projects that are signed off on.
in other words,
But we don't have anything concrete, for that.
yeah. So in other words, you're talking about language in this policy or language in
Right, probably
long.
either that we're working on it and it would be in a future purchasing policy, but we don't have anything concrete right now.
So you're saying that at this point, with this document,
I'm punting again.
you're punting, and we'll just go forward with that.
Yeah.
I'll turn this over to Ms. Fritz, because she can describe the process she can describe what you're looking at here. And how it incorporates the version we had last month. And what the policy committee's additions or comments are and what we need to do today. Because policy is going to see it again too. They continued as well.
So Michael, and again, I don't know if there's like a set process for these policies. So this one in particular has gone before policy and finance. If you remember budget policy, which I believe just went through finance. So when we brought this to policy, there was a lot of comments and enough so that I felt like we needed to bring it back here. Get your comments, their comments, and I guess what I would say is do a finalized draft version of the finance. Policy will see it again and they'll make comments, but then my thought is to, then at that point, the finance version is gonna go before the board. If there are additional comments or concerns from policy, I will notate that in the staff report. But at some point, it's the board's decision on what they want to incorporate or what they don't want to incorporate. I don't have anything in writing on how this should be done. So that's just my thoughts on, I don't want to keep going back and forth.
Right.
We need to get to a finalized version. I can always, memorialize any concerns that policy has in the staff report. But they will be seeing this again, but to me, this is the last time we'll be seeing this before it goes to the board.
Okay, so just to ask a question about what we're looking at here. There are changes,
Yes.
actually in the text, and some of them were suggested by, I think they were suggested, these were recommended by policy, right? For instance, including a definition of procurement, I know that was done. And a couple others. We also didn't we do some editing? Yeah. As the editing that we did, that was done by you, after our meeting, is that marked here? Is not?
I don't know if it's marked here.
Some of it is.
Yeah.
And you were, like this kind
We're
of
in
thing.
blue.
In blue,
It's
okay, so
from us.
it's in blue, okay. So,
This should be everybody's,
Right.
ours and theirs.
Yeah. so the comments in red or the changes in red were suggested by or recommended by the policy committee, even though they did not take final action. They had a long discussion and they came up with some of these changes. And some of them actually are,
Some of the changes that were grammatical. and
Right,
stuff,
right, right.
But if it was a concept.
Right.
I put it in the notes.
yeah, because I noted, I think on page 14 of our agenda, page 9 of the document, there was a reference to purchases of material, supplies, and equipment equal to or greater than $50,000. And the reason that was changed to 25, I believe, is that there was
There was
a
a
gap. Yeah, it
Yeah.
had to be closed. And that's not really changing the policy. It's just,
Correct.
there was a, the gap be closed. And then, there's a couple of things that are fairly, I think non-controversial. Professional services, I'm not sure about that. If we're contracts estimated greater than $1,000, those are all pretty much in the spirit of the thing that we presented to the policy committee. Then the comments, though, tend to be aimed at changing things, I guess. You'll notice, especially towards making limits much smaller on what staff can do or a general manager can do. And maybe Denise, you could talk about that, because that was seemed to be the theme at their committee meeting about wanting to sort of rein in.
Yeah, and I mean, maybe we can go through each comment and like you said, I think everything else is, if it's actually changed in there, I feel like it's grammatical.
Right.
You're seeing some errors, but if we can go through and maybe address the comments. And you all can have further discussion on if you want to make a change in the policy, or if you want to say, no, we like the policy as is. Yes, that's my thought.
Okay.
Okay, so the first comment, well, Don Howell. It's always very positive. Overall changes to this policy need to be made, but it's far superior. So, yes, you can agree with
Fine
that.
with that, thanks.
Yes. Thank you, Don.
Next one is on page 10, I believe.
Yes, so
That's Townsend.
Townsend suggests putting a period after entity and strike the remainder of the paragraph. So, and this change would have significantly changed the meaning of that, so I put it as a note. I thought
So
So I'll read it out loud.
Sure.
So no CCSD employees, department manager or director shall accept directly or indirectly any gift, rebate, money, or anything else of value from any person or entity if such gift, rebate, money, or anything of value is intended to reward or be an inducement for conducting business, placing orders with, or otherwise using the recipient's position with CCSD to secure an agreement with the CCSD. So what Townsend would like to do is change it to no CCSD employee, department manager, or director shall accept directly or indirectly any gift, rebate, money, or anything else of value from any person or entity, period.
Mhm.
So the discussion on this went
Bad
into.
Christmas.
Yeah, but Christmas gifts. So we do get Christmas gifts from vendors. I mean, our attorneys send us
We
you know.
get the,
certain
we get the,
Yeah,
you know,
we
Middle
get
Eastern pastries, you know.
the Middle Eastern pastries and
Grinch.
such. So, that kind of was the discussion.
Yeah.
I can't think of any other gift, what could be classified as a gift. Wanted to go so far as Karen baking us cookies a gift.
It doesn't leave any room for, say, de minimis.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I have talked to colleagues in other
Yeah.
organizations that are governmental in nature, and there is not uncommon to have a dollar value limit, even on such things as Christmas gifts, like,
Yeah.
we're not allowed to accept a gift from a vendor that's over $50 or something
They
like
don't
that,
want
like,
to bribe you.
yeah, even
No.
like,
Yeah.
chocolates at Christmas or something. So anyways, I wanted you all to decide how you want
Mhm.
this worded.
I'm gonna take the other approach, because from the world that I came from,
You might-
there are no gifts.
Yes.
No, nothing. No, nothing, no lunches, no dinners, no bottles of wine because I controlled the budget in my group. And for me, it was more of a principle thing that never could anybody ever say that I had selected some particular vendor's products or somebody else's because I had ever received anything from them. And so, I understand what you're saying, but at the same time, my note to myself in the
No.
column is, I agree. But nothing. There's no reason for it. And that's just where I come from, and that's how I was taught, and
We got
that's
some-
it.
We got some public.
No, you're finished.
No, go ahead,
I'm done.
go ahead, yeah, Chief.
So we get this all the time, constantly, people will bring, who transported their family member to the hospital, the parents or the kids or something, or the spouses will bring gifts to our department in the form of baked goods sometimes it's just straight,
But there's no contract there.
there's no contract, no, not at all. It's just people doing the same thing, yeah, just like the cookies being baked or whatever.
Is it money though, Michael?
No, we never accepted money, like, but we had that offer, people will say on.
But it doesn't matter if it's of monetary value, if it's like, we
That's
don't
right,
get money,
monetary
but we
value.
get chocolate. So I feel like if we put a
If it's
period
good
after entity,
chocolate.
then the fire department will have to start refusing.
Right.
Then
Any
we can't
sort of
give you
gift.
leftover food from Thursday night dinner, for
Right.
instance.
Exactly.
That's a lot of- yeah.
It could be construed as a gift in that way.
Yes.
If we're reading it, that,
Yeah,
it could be,
Mm.
so again, that happens, especially around the holidays, our counters are.
And to play devil's advocate, yes, there's no contracting going on, but Chief Berkey does have the opportunity to choose which contractors he wants to work with. So if a contractor is dropping off something, and I get that these are families, it's not,
Yeah,
we're
people
not
are
talking
just-
about that, but
It could
if the
be.
policy states something, then we're gonna have to follow it all across the
Right,
district.
Right.
So
Yeah, Dave.
I think his point, my point would be to leave it as it is, not insert that
Period. Yeah.
period.
Yeah, I think so.
I think it talks about, ethics.
Mhm.
And there's a separate ethics policy also, so. I think the way the paragraph is worded is fine.
Yeah. I would, yeah, I'm not a voter here, but I would also agree that, I think the problem is that, that there's, depending on the source of the gift, it's something that you look at, differently. In terms of the danger of being an inducement. Like if it comes from somebody who wants to contract with us or contracts with us, and it's over a certain amount, it's like a significant amount, then it's something suspect. You have to worry about that. If it's from people who just love the fire department. I mean, there's a different kind of dynamic going on there, obviously. But the one way it's solved, I think county supervisors do this, don't they have it? They have a dollar amount, when you go to lunch with them or something like that. You could do that. But I think for now, you're more in the spirit of what they do by trying to put a dollar amount on it, by just leaving it as it is, because over a certain level, if it's a certain amount of money, or a favor, or a free trip or something from somebody who's doing business with the CCSD, then as Dave says, there's ethics rules and ethics laws they make that suspect, and then, basically they put you under some suspicion.
Yeah, we all took.
Automatically. Yeah, automatically. It's part of the state law and everything.
It was part of that.
Yeah, so there are rules that are already in effect.
Could even reference the rule there.
Yeah, well, yeah, and this, I guess, we can always go back. We can reference the rule there if we have to. I think we don't need to, for economy of, statement, but yeah, there are ethics, standards, which I think, have you ever had a preface to this? You'd say these, by reference, we're incorporating all the ethics rules, government code and code of regulations and all that in this document. But if we were just talking about editing this particular passage, I would say keep it the way it is. And I guess it's up to, it's all up to the group to do that. But let's move on to the other ones and we'll make some decisions.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is on page. Sorry, I'm on the electronic version.
That was 10.
The next one is
It's six for
6
us.
or 11.
Six
Yeah,
or
6.
6.
Yeah, 6 on the document.
Policy.
Mhm.
And it says Townsend increases, modifications or amendments should not be done administratively unless less than 5%. The board should approve any increases over 5%. So this is so there's been a little confusion for me as when I started here and exactly what does the board need to approve? I was always trained that the board needs to approve anything capital, right? But there was never anything really written in the policy. So we're trying to really be clear about what the board needs to approve.
Mhm.
So if we're reading that, contract amendments and purchase orders for the purchase of supplies, equipment, exceeds $50,000 more. Cause right now, I mean, you approve the operating budget, but then, we're allowed to utilize that budget, without board approval. If the total price of a budget line item exceeds the budgeted amount by more than 20%, the general manager's approval will be required. And so that's saying like a supplies and services line, goes over, the general manager needs to be made aware and approving. So what Townsend is suggesting is saying any modifications or amendments should not be done administratively unless
5%.
less than 5%, and the board should have to approve
Yeah.
everything, over 5%. So that's like operational budget stuff as well, which is not what we do now.
No, that's ridiculous.
There's a trend here with Mr. Townsend.
But yeah, you're talking
Is
about,
this line on
say,
everything?
if I read this right, you're saying that, in other words, the board,
Yes, that's what I was.
the general manager's approval will be required, and he's saying less than 5%, or more than 5%, the board's approval required.
Yes.
That means if you're in, you have some line item on a budget, is like supplies for such and such, for F&R for very limited use. Well, you're 7 months into the budget and
We've had an emergency.
you have an
or-
emergency and you have to spend more.
Install the
Well, you have to
board.
wait for the next board meeting to get it
And
approved.
those board meetings are gonna be tied up with like line
That's
items.
crazy.
Yeah,
There's
yeah,
only
yeah.
one per month now.
Yeah, but also it's
It's-
appropriate, it's like, you're not supposed to be doing day-to-day operations on the
No.
board at all.
Right.
And a
And-
budget is a plan, right?
Yeah,
And so we
right.
budget as best that we can, and I think that it's maybe mistaken that we just spend whatever we wanna spend. But there are deviations, sometimes we have an emergency, a contract is a little bit more, and I'm looking in conjunction with the managers on a monthly basis to make, and as we get closer to the end of the year, to make sure as a whole, we're staying within our budget. Are there some little fluctuations in
Absolutely.
the operating budget from line item to line item? Yes, we had to print out some extra flyers and it cost more. Okay, well, our printing budget was $100, but we actually spent 200. I mean, according to this,
Yeah,
then I would
there's-
have to bring that
They're
to the
little
board.
items, their
to
line items are
say-
small.
And so
Scratch
we
that.
are watching those things, but they're not something that the board needs to be aware of.
It's
It's unnecessary.
yeah, it's
Yes.
unnecessary.
And it's beyond the real job of the board
Right.
Right.
anyway. The
Yeah.
board is to set policy. The board is not to run the operations of the
And and
CCS.
if there's significant changes to the budget, to spending within the budget, every quarter we have the review of the budget, or review of the budget. If something has gone way over in some area, we can decide as well, maybe adjust the budget to, if that hasn't been the problem, because it hasn't been that much of a problem,
Mhm.
that big a jump, if something really comes up that's way much larger than we expected, we can make adjustments to the budget.
Stewart Street tank was a perfect example of
But this is what just,
adjustments.
this is what requires board action, nothing,
Yeah.
and it's every quarter and we have the opportunity to do it, but this day-to-day stuff is, Dave says, it's not necessary.
So speaking of Stewart Street Tank, I'm addressing that in
Yeah.
number 6 on here. The board will approve all capital improvement projects through the yearly budget process or a budget adjustment.
Right.
So if Stewart Street Tank increases, I have to, that's a capital project. That has to go before the board.
Right.
And I'm memorializing that in this policy, not even just for the public, but even for myself. It was always a little confusing, like, when do we have to go for it? Because it was never written in the policy, so we are putting that in there. So for Stewart Street,
Yeah.
Stewart Street tank increase, it would need to go before the board.
I'll just move to page,
Can I ask you a question
sure.
first? And the general manager is always responsible for justifying what he does to the board. Is that correct? So it doesn't just
Yes.
end?
Yeah.
Okay,
Right.
all right, thank you,
And
thank you.
again, there's a stopgap every quarter. Nice.
Yeah, you get a chance to look at, see what's going on with the budget every quarter. Yeah. Okay, moving on to, I think this is page 7 on the document.
Generally, the numbers are too high for what staff can do without board approval. I would suggest that contracts over 25,000 require board approval on consent calendar so they can be seen in the light of day. So just in full disclosure, we have changed dollar values on these we did our research, looked at other CSDs and their limits and stuff. So these numbers were not put in here like this is what it has to be. So adjustment to these numbers are fine. But there was a lot of discussion about the dollar values. And so I felt that I needed to bring it back here for you all to weigh in, because in this committee, we didn't really have the same discussions as we're having in policy. So in the same vein, the next comment is CCSD has recent history of spending large sums of money with very little accountability on delivering the projects. My philosophy on this would be to keep the staff on a relatively short leash until they can actually demonstrate an ability to deliver some of these projects that have been hanging out for years. And once they show the community that they can actually close these projects out, then I would personally consider loosening up the purse strings. So that's in the discussion of limitations, and then,
Okay,
including staff report justification for approval limit. So, they wanted like a justification of why we're setting these approval limits, and my justification was I was looking at industry standard. And again, I have no, they are higher than what we've had in the past, so if we need to lower them, we can lower them.
Yeah.
But, you know, we were looking at industry standards, so that's the justification.
Any comment,
They're fine the way they are.
any comment from the committee members? Got one there.
It's the same thing. It's a philosophical thing.
Yeah.
There's ways for the board to exercise its control over the
Absolutely.
staff.
Right.
At any
And if they
meeting.
haven't in the past, then.
Right.
Yeah.
It's the board.
You,
And then we
Like the new
previously
board.
said, anything capital is gonna go before the board, so that
Sure,
takes
there's enough
a whole
watchdogs.
chunk of, rarely do we do like an operating contract that's over 50,000, you know, just in our operation, so most things that it, you know, if it falls into that capital category, it is going to be going before the board.
Now, I would just suggest a little change in the topographic change here. When the 50,000 plus line of both boxes exceeds somehow is all caps. And they should say $50,000 after 50,000 in both of those. I don't know how they all caps came there, but so we're the sort of the consensus here is that we let these things stand as they are, right, without not following the comments.
Correct.
Yeah, very good. I'll move to page 9 of the document.
So, that was where I needed to add a section for purchases between 25.
Yeah, and that was, yeah, so
We're
that,
missing a
right,
section,
yeah, that is the gapping, closing the gap there.
closing the gap.
And that doesn't add anything to the actual intention of the,
And I am going to, once I get a clean version after everything, I'm gonna go through and make sure everything's super consistent in those blocks. Because one thing that came up is this is stating, so this is procedures for procurement of, so purchasing of the material. So this is really about the procedure, and so it's like, how many quotes do you need? Is
Yeah.
it verbal? Is it that? So that's what these sections are trying to do. And then, notice, okay, so on page 10,
Mhm.
notice number 9 on that first one, notice that no vendor can withdraw its proposal for a period of 60 days from the date of opening proposals.
and Don was,
He was saying, will
Clearing
60
that.
days be a problem with vendors?
no, there won't be a problem.
that wouldn't seem to be. I mean,
No,
it
'cause
seems
that's
quite
what
a
I
bit-
thought too, because it's like withdrawing a proposal, like.
So it won't, that wouldn't limit our pool of possible vendors.
No.
You don't want it to be counterproductive.
Yeah.
No,
For
no,
the-
no, I was a vendor. That
Okay,
wouldn't
yeah.
have bothered us.
So we'll just use our own
30
life.
days was the norm before, but it's been moved up to 60 days.
Okay.
In most places, because it just takes longer to make decisions.
Yeah.
So.
Could we
So-
go up
Yeah.
2 lines to line 7 where where quality's been added? It's being added in a couple of places.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Based on what? That is. what-
So there was somewhere in here that quality was mentioned. and
Yeah, it
we
was,
consistently use it. And I'm trying to find.
Well, there was-
order.
I think that might,
They had suppliers of low rating on page 3, right at the bottom, which was unclear. How do you define low rating or in this case, low quality?
right, because you don't have. Unless you're willing to take and go out and to the job sites and see what their work looks like and willing to call them out on it. You're gonna have to, I don't think that's a defendable. Reason for not selecting a vendor. I mean, you'd have to be able to tell them that we looked at your job on Warwick Street and you guys don't know what you're doing.
Mhm.
That's my street. by the way. So if we want to define quality as to what it is that we're talking about, then perhaps, but if we're not willing to define it. I don't think we can add it.
I see your point. We make that step. Anyways, let it remain in the version that we had.
And not that I
Any
just,
comment on that? I mean, anybody else have any comments on that?
That sounds good to me.
Yeah.
Again, I think it's somewhere and I can't find it visually, but I can
Okay.
search the document. I think it was in one of them and then they were like oh, we should have them in all of them. So I could remove quality from all of
Yeah.
those.
There's also one down under D, alternative procedure.
Right.
Same thing, same as C7, yeah.
There is one from, if my memory serves. It's
So it's
dangerous to say, because my memory is not
Yeah,
very
yeah,
good,
yeah.
but,
Yeah,
I think that was the discussion is quality was in one somewhere and they wanted to reiterate that. So I mean, we can either just take out quality or we can define it or,
That's a,
I would
So
take it.
it's here in two places on page 10.
but that's because I added it. There's
And I
somewhere.
looked before and
You don't see it.
I didn't see it in red.
Okay.
So-
It wouldn't be in red, it would just be.
Okay,
That's how you
all
know.
right.
I could go back, yeah, we take those two out, we take those two changes out, basically, go
Okay.
back
I
to
could
the
remove
original.
quality altogether, or we could define it.
delete it.
Delete it.
Delete it, yeah,
With you.
delete it,
Delete it?
yeah. On
Okay,
page-
and I'll find the place it was in.
Could I have just one more moment,
Yes.
so that we don't have to go back later? Back on page, the material, page 3, our number in page 8. You know, when we're doing those definitions, the process had been a couple times, as I recall, was to clean out, putting the word being defined into the description of what it is. And then we added procurement P, and the first word is procurement is. Whereas in all the other ones, where it says public
I
works.
can delete that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I had that too, Scott.
okay.
And capitalize the, get rid
Yeah,
of it.
procurement,
Yes, yeah.
colon, the process of, you know.
Same.
That was an oversight.
Oh. I had one more before I go.
Yes.
That was on page 9. When, it's B, the very first 2 lines on there, it says they're reviewed annually. Do we need to define annually?
Where,
Fiscal.
Page 4, number page 4 and 9. Up at the top, it says it's a change. It's gonna be to take and review it annually. And it only because it's fresh in my mind from an NRC audit that I had that we had to define exactly what annually meant. Does it mean that you do it once in 24 and once in 25? Or does it mean that you do it 12 months from the time that you prior did it?
Hmm.
What does annually mean to you? And then
Fiscal.
you need to define what annually means.
Fiscal year.
Yeah, that's actually, in the next one after the C, the procurement policy, again,
Oh,
has
there it is.
annually, yeah, it's in two sections.
Oh.
Uh,
But what does that mean? That's all I'm asking.
yeah, I mean, do we want to do an annual review of this? Do we need to?
No,
I don't think so.
No,
Maybe we need
I
it.
mean.
Go ahead.
The district worked fine for, 25 years without revising this thing, without us.
Well,
Without revising this document.
I would just, and I can check with, Mrs. Dodson about if there's written anywhere that we approve policy or review policies annually, like all the policies.
yeah.
Does Mr. Townsend agree? with
don't.
you?
we review the bylaws, not the policies.
Does Mr. Townsend agree with you about running well for
Unless there's something
25
in
years?
the,
Done all the damage I planned.
you know,
I mean, we could put something on a regular basis, we
Yeah.
could, I don't know.
you know, on a period, on a periodic basis, I mean, what we originally had there, under C especially, it was fine because, the procurement policy shall be reviewed, as better than should, on
Yeah.
a periodic basis and updated
When
or deemed appropriate to reflect changes in the CCSD's operations, period, because the approval of the board is always going to be, that's a, done, you know, that's assumed, because you can't change a policy without having approval of the board. So,
I can change it back to
Yeah.
periodic basis.
yeah, change it back, I would,
I'm for that.
okay, I think we're on that.
You want me to change annually everywhere to periodic basis?
Yes.
I think so.
I think so.
Too, yeah. We're actually taking,
Is this going back?
it's going back to them and they'll,
Oh, gee.
but.
But I'm not, I'm not,
All right, do we need
This-
to move to?
whatever, no, whatever
extend the
you
meeting?
all,
Yeah. I was gonna
Let's
say.
move it, let's,
I'm
move
gonna
to extend it, I'll ask to extend the meeting to 12:15, which should be enough. Is it okay with everybody?
so whatever you all approve is what is getting sent to the board.
Oh.
With caveats of if they have any more concerns or questions, I will address it in the staff report to
Yeah.
board.
I'm gonna go. to-
So let's finish up the comments and the text
Okay, so what-
examination.
Done.
You're almost done, actually, yeah,
So page
We're on
8.
yeah.
Okay, so that's where.
I think we're on page, yeah.
We're actually on page, I think,
We're on page 11, aren't we?
This is so crazy.
well, there's page 11, which is the Don Howell comment.
Yeah, page
Mhm.
11 is requesting an example of this, so sorts. I didn't, a policy doesn't need to have an example in it, so.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
she did
Okay.
that for-
Yeah,
I don't. we
I don't
have
think so,
examples.
necessary, yeah.
Um. That was my.
Okay.
That one,
And it's good, yeah, it's good that we're looking also at the changes in red that were made, because those were made by policy.
Okay,
committee.
so
We've got some things that way, so too.
that, again, I mean, constantly suggest the board shall approve the award of all professional service contracts.
Yeah.
What page is that on?
Pages of 13, 14 and 19.
14 for us.
19 of the agenda. I would,
So
again,
then service contracts above $50,000, the board of directors will approve. Again, this is outside of any capital discussion, that's already been addressed.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that all professional service contracts should go before the board.
yeah,
Does that mean you're legal too?
Yeah, well.
Well, we do.
Legal.
legal goes to the board because the board contracts directly with the,
But there's.
with the
no
council. Council.
attorneys for this district.
but see, that's not general manager responsibility, that's a board responsibility. Council, legal counsel is the board directly,
But
they
like-
directly work for the board. That's a little
Choose a
different.
example. I mean,
How about,
would be like,
Professional services, all sorts of things.
or like our janitorial service,
Yeah,
that would
yeah.
go. to the
I
board.
don't
Our,
understand that.
and you know, any with our, I mean, I'm reading this to be anything, like with our software, with
Okay.
CIO, with,
Yeah.
you know, all of that stuff.
It's back to what Dave said about
Policy
setting
versus
policy
operation.
versus day-to-day stuff. Mr. Johnson should run for the board.
No.
Karen.
No.
It's too
He
late.
has a chance, yeah.
Too late.
yes.
Too
He
late.
did, it was.
Too late, yeah, no, yeah, because I think the, it's a good point. I mean, the general point is that if you don't trust your general manager to
Yes.
make decisions like this, you should fire your general
You got a
manager.
bigger problem.
You got a bigger problem, exactly, that's. Of course, I don't want to get going on
yeah,
this, but,
Yeah.
He's still with us?
No, he isn't.
no, but I mean, it's
talking about the title.
Why?
there are responsibilities your general manager has, and you have to trust him to carry them out
Right.
appropriately, or else, you know,
What's the
you
point?
got, yeah, you got a much bigger problem.
Okay, so next comment is from Ms. Chrisman. Does anyone know, I think, let the contract, is that phrase common?
That's legally.
Okay,
Is it, if it's common, then that's the end of it.
Yeah.
well, that was just a
Okay.
question. 'cause
And
we're
major projects with, was it,
Major projects with associated cash flows. so
this
that's-
is what Scott was talking, Scott was talking about earlier about, he wanted to see more
Like
depth
structure.
on this.
Just saying, if any contract that obligates both with the purchase of equipment or, you have to say if there's a maintenance contract, the whole contract has to be valued. Because you can buy, said, especially with aircraft, you buy aircraft, but then you buy, you know, it's not just the cost of the aircraft, it's the ongoing maintenance and so on and so forth. So anything that obligates the district to future cash flows as part of that project should be included in the, should be
Like our
included.
software purchase. as an
Correct.
example.
Yeah,
So is there a wording that could be inserted here? Or is it something that, where would it go, I guess, where would the
and
wording-
that's the thing, it's,
where would you
I
put it?
think it's something we could revisit with a later addition to the policy
Mhm.
after we've done our bit with the long-term capital planning.
Okay, so we're letting that go for. now.
Right.
Okay, maybe we
It's
can,
more of a-
yeah, okay.
I mean, I would say like, yes, we do look at that when we're evaluating, but to memorialize it in the contract, I think is appropriate or in the policy. I would have to think on that a little bit.
Okay,
I think that's it.
we did, on the page 16,
Mhm.
we're okay with this credit card, there's an insertion, there's some insertions here, which,
Okay,
yeah,
I have a question.
Yeah.
On, exactly what you're talking about, Tom. In 6.3, item A1, look at this, at the second sentence in red. If I read this correctly, and let's, if I read this correctly, that second sentence refers to number 2, the paragraph below, which talks about the department managers having responsibility for care and control. And this inserted sentence says,
Yeah.
you know, using the
Right.
example of the fire chief letting fire captains, which is not a possessive, use the credit card. So
Yes.
am I right about that?
So I inserted this because I'm trying to establish, like, because it's very clear, like, who can have a credit card, who can't have a procurement card. And I would like to have the ability, if the general manager decides to have, let's say, not Chief Berkey has a credit card, but his captain, there's a fire department captain credit card, right? So then they can use their credit card to make necessary purchases and stuff. So they're not borrowing Chief Berkey's card. It's more of a general captain card.
It's a different card. Is that right?
Yes.
I can speak to that.
Which is just extending who gets a card in the district, because that has not been the case before, but we do run in operationally. And where I come from, we've done this, right? And procurement cards are preferred means of purchasing goods and services. And so I wanted to extend that policy a little bit.
Chief Brooker, yeah.
Yeah, so, the reason why that, and first of all, the department did have that system in place at one point. And so why that's important is, if our engines end up going out of county on an immediate need, I won't be able to, if I'm not there, I won't be able to get them my credit card in order for them to go out of county. So that's something that happens relatively quickly. And so having the captains use those cards in that instance is perfect example of why it would be necessary for them to have one versus just me having one, you know, leaving at the station or wherever. Again, that's how we did it in the past, and I felt like that worked out pretty well. And then the accountability is there too. It's always over the captains, you know, it's what they're.
Okay,
sure. Basically.
Yeah,
That
and then
makes
the
sense.
authority is up to you, and
Right,
so you could use the same method with utilities, like our superintendents do not have a credit card, but we could have like a utility superintendent card that is not, you know, and that they would have access to that over the oversight of Jim Green if, in case of an
And you
emergency.
can establish different spending limits on those cards.
Yeah.
So.
So it's opening up our procurement policy a little bit, for our P card, our procurement card policy. Like I said, it is somewhat of a preferred method of purchasing things, instead of, you know, having, you know, right now we have some limitations even on trainings, like them getting hotels, like they could take that card then to the hotel or, you know, with what, different things like that. So, but that one's on me, I made that change.
So I think it sounds like we will stick with that.
Okay,
But captains does not have an apostrophe, as Karen noted. The clause after that, the paragraph after that, I would change can to may. Yeah, only general manager and department managers may sign credit cards. That has to do with permission rather than ability, yeah. I remember I learned that in elementary school. We can continue, I think we're almost done. Yeah, we're almost done here. I think these changes on page 17 are, these labeling changes, on page 17 are, there because of the petty cash and invoice approval were switched somehow.
Yeah.
And that very last sentence that was crossed out, manager or their designee shall reconcile the petty cash fund on a monthly basis. That's just a,
It was redundant.
Yeah.
redundant, yeah. Okay,
All right.
Just
Scott.
one that we skipped over, policy page number 12. Top section D, says, authorize and purchase order amount up to 999.99 cents. I think that's, should be 10,000 because the next one is purchases over 10,000.
Yeah, I said equal to or greater than for E, but it could be, it could be what
Either
you,
way,
what you
either,
said.
right, yes, we're talking.
Oh, all purchases, of 10,000 or over?
Mhm.
Yeah, so then
Require the signature.
the
Yeah.
one on either, be right, either up to and including 10,000 or change the one above
Yeah.
to 10,000.
Okay, yeah,
Can I ask you something?
yes.
With the chairman's permission, I suppose, depending on Ms. Fritz's time, I would like permission to meet with her again because I still see capitalization inconsistencies and we won't change any of the meanings.
Fine.
Okay?
We can incorporate, I think we want to make I basically want to have some, I mean, probably this is going to take a little while to do, but
Clean
hey,
it up.
And we don't want to, I don't want to take up time in the meeting.
I want to make a recommendation. I think we want to come out with a recommendation on the text that we're approving. So, I don't know if anybody wants to go to the effort of making a detailed motion here. But I can say that the comments are we're not following the comments. We'll just be silent on those, basically, I think. And then we'll say that the, certain things that were, changed, in the text, in red, we're reversing those changes and restoring the original and making some changes in wording, that for changes in wording for meaning and content rather than just grammatical readability and stuff like that. We should maybe note those too. Does anyone want to take a crack at a motion? Summarizing, I can try to summarize what we have.
More than so moved.
Well,
Well, you know what I'm saying?
and I don't know that we have to delineate every change that we decided to make. I think we see that this phrase took copious notes.
I
And
mean, is it different than the board, the expectation for emotion?
Why do you have to take a motion?
Well, I think we want to recommend, I think we want to say, we want to recommend, it's, approval to the board with the changes that were, that have been noted by,
September 24th?
noted by, Ms. Fritz. During our deliberations, I mean,
Yeah.
I can't make the motion if somebody else has to do that.
yeah,
Go ahead.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, that motion is moved, seconded, that we recommend approval of the procurement, revised current policy incorporating the changes that were identified, and noted by, our finance manager, administrative director, department director.
This is tedious.
Well, it's over though.
It's done.
Roll call. Roll call,
Pearson.
Mr. Pearson.
Aye.
Mr. Henderson. Mr. McCann.
Aye.
Ms. McDowell.
Aye.
Ms. Christmas.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. Okay, thank you for sitting through this whole thing. I think we're done. I think, future agenda items, anybody have a future agenda item?
No.
I guess we're done.
Do we meet,
Yeah.
we meet in October and then early December, is that correct?
Yes.
October, and early December, yes,
Okay,
yes.
and this goes to the board in October, the
This is
policy?
going to policy.
I mean, it goes to the board
No,
in
it's us.
October or November.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know, if it shows in gray. Is this on your agenda? And,
What?
The policy
have
we
you
talked
made it
about.
to an agenda item?
Oh, I put a CCC agenda?
Yes,
We actually,
I would.
we've done our job, right? My policy will pick it up. It'll probably be in November. I think it goes on in November agenda.
She had what the doctor termed as a foggy brain.
October, so yes.
Heard that
I think
expression?
it's go on a
I-
November board agenda.
Oh,
Yeah,
Okay.
it was,
right?
I looked
Yeah.
at that, I think we're gonna go over those today, actually, this afternoon.
There with my brother.
We're gonna go over those board agendas this afternoon, because I'll make sure that we can get this to the board on there, remember that. Yes, we've done our
Like I
thing.
said, I'm hoping this
So
version
are we adjourned?
So we had that.
before the board. Anything now that we'll see. I'm just gonna.
Okay.
Uh,
Are we adjourned yet?
We're adjourning now, yeah, we heard about adjourned, we should not,
Tomorrow I get the
you know,
results on it.
we should not just have, we're adjourning at, yeah, 12:09. Thank you, everyone. I think we covered a lot. And,
Thank you, firefighters.
Thank you, firefighters. Yes.
It was fascinating, wasn't it?
Yeah.
What did you learn?
So.
I don't know.
You understand all this.
I have, yes.
Okay.